Let me be that you will say to say. Now I don't on the road. I don't to redemption. Redemption. Okay, let's do homework. Boom, 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 boom. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Boom, 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 boom. Doing my homework. I'm doing my homework. I'm attending Full Sail, taking programming. I'm taking game development. I'm doing my homework. The internet has everybody convinced that things are easy, so I'm actually showing how difficult life actually is. So yeah, that's pretty much it. There probably won't be a lot of talking, but I I would zoom in, but it's difficult. I'm just doing homework. So yeah, that's it. You can scroll if you want, but I've been doing homework and live streaming it for the last month. Right now I got 100 at the beginning of this course. I've been procrastinating all holiday, and I've got about 20 hours to do a week's worth of assignments. So just gonna cram it out. So you're streaming but not talking to us? Yes, because my channel is self improvement and self education, and I don't have the time at the moment to focus on my channel the way I want. So the biggest issue right now is society is like anti artificial intelligence, and I'm pro artificial intelligence, and I want to show how much time it takes to just do normal stuff, right? Like it takes all day. So as a 42-year-old man living by myself, paying all my bills, having to work 8 hours a day, and trying to go back to school, I'm pretty much just showing what that looks like realistically. Like most people put together an edit and you watch the edit and they'll talk about what they did and the commentary over that. But this is the real time what has to actually happen. Like I just got done running 2 miles to keep my energy level high enough to even have the capacity to even sit here and do homework. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. So take it or leave it. That's what's going on. So I sometimes I watch I watch my lectures and you can hear them talking and stuff. There is going to be in the future when I have more time and I get more control over my structure, I will start putting the things in place so you guys can see what's actually happening and going on. But even the camera, I can't even get the camera to go horizontal. Like little stuff like that just makes life so much more difficult than it needs to be. YouTube refuses to rotate the camera. Like it just won't do it for me. It will not turn it horizontal for me. So this is the worst angle. Like it shouldn't be in this portrait mode. So yeah. Yeah, so I apologize for not talking to you, but yeah, you can watch. If you don't want to watch, you can scroll up to the next thing. My name is Paul Emerson. My 2 cents is my channel. Like I said, self improvement and self education. At the beginning of the year, I'm going to do a 100K run. So yeah, but there's not enough time in the day. Like there's not enough time in the day. Life is frustrating. And see the way I'm streaming now to do my homework, I'm going to start streaming me actually designing my game. I'm building an all female fighting game. Once I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I know enough to start. This homework stuff is going to convert to me actually taking information I learned to start building my video game. I have a vision for it. I don't know if I can do it, but that's the goal. But I have to get from where I am to where I'm trying to be. And I'm building a Microsoft Life system that also integrates into that, and I can't structure it because I don't have the time. And every time I sit down and like, okay, maybe this is it, there's just always something missing. So I'm hoping that in the process of like just doing it, then I can format it in a way that it'll make sense and be ready to actually distribute to the public. So um the game that I'm building, Ebony Fighters, I'm planning on doing all of them. I like RTS. I like 4X games. I like real time strategies and things of that nature. The game that I'm designing, the game Ebony Fighters is an all female fighting game. And when I came up with it when I was in my 20s, the scope of it was what could I do as a solo developer by myself realistically? And I felt like the most realistic game scope would be a fighting game. Fighting games are fairly simple enough that I felt like as an independent developer, I could probably pull it off. So that's what Ebony Fighters is. But Ebony Fighters it's it's actually the way I perceive it in my head is it's a dressy game. So the characters' attributes and stuff are defined by the equipment. The biggest okay, the biggest weakness of a fighting game is eventually you master the game, right? Eventually you learn all the characters, you master all the characters, and then you can predict the computer to the point where the game becomes static. And even if you wind up playing online, the movement sets are so limited that eventually you're still going to have the same thing. You're going to wind up getting to a point where the game's going to get static, right? So Enemy Fighters is has so much procedural information in it, the movements, the characters, the style, their garments. There's so much movement in it. There's so much dynamics in it that the game should never get boring. It should never get static. The characters' wardrobes allows you to change their combat styles and their movements. So you would have to actually learn all of the different wardrobes and be able to visually look at the characters and see what you're up against. And the actual game scope for Enemy Fighters is anime. You should feel like you're playing an anime. Like that's the final game scope for Enemy Fighters. If it's done the way I want it to be done, it should feel like, oh, I'm playing an anime. And it's all female, so that way when you create Goku, they can't say it's a copyright infringement because most characters are not female, they're male. So you could actually build Goku and Superman in the game engine, and they can fight each other, and I don't have to worry about copyright infringement because while the characters will be doing things that are clearly Dragon Ball Z, Goku's not a girl. Supergirl is a girl, but they would have to make the argument that okay, this character is clearly Supergirl. So hi. So in that space, it'll make the game fun. Any anime character that you can think of, or any hero or character you can imagine in the world, you can recreate them in the game. And I want the game to be dynamic enough that you can recreate females. It's gonna be aimed toward girls, so it should have enough. It should be designed in such a way that a girl would actually be able to recreate herself in the game. Unfortunately, at the moment, I don't play any video games. I don't have the time in my schedule to play games. I don't have the time in my schedule to do anything but homework. But I'm getting there. I have to just keep focused, stay organized, keep moving toward my long-term vision, and do the work. And the work is hard. Work is difficult. Life is difficult. The adversities of the world are real, and you have to be able to come up with a good plan, a good strategy, and stay focused enough to achieve your objectives without getting distracted. Exhale, and that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm just showing the reality of how this stuff works. Like you're supposed to be 18 to be on my channel, and you should be out of high school, and you should be trying to transition from being a kid to being an adult. And this is what it looks like. This is what adulting looks like. Like anyone can say, yeah, just go out there and do it. Go out there and make something of yourself. This is what it looks like. It's hard. It's difficult. And you don't have the answers or the solutions to the problems, but effort should be made. So yeah. So let me quit procrastinating. In years, I will enjoy saying I had a startup. That's straight up conversation with Paul Emerson before he was famous. Yeah, I hope so. It'd be awesome. Like, I was talking to that dude while he was talking about this video game. It was amazing. Yeah, that'd be cool. So, I mean, it's not impossible anymore. Like, the world has changed so much that it's not impossible anymore. And when I was born in the 80s, so when I was this young kid that wanted to do all these things and have all these ambitions, I actually thought this stuff was impossible. Like I literally thought, yeah, I'm never gonna be able to do this. No, this will never happen. And it's sad for me at the age of 43 to see the potential that young people have and know that they don't even get it. Like, not being disrespectful, but like you're used to something to the point where you don't even understand what you have, right? And I'm so used to not having that I see the potential. Like I went from thinking that maybe one day I'll have enough money to hire a game studio to build this game for me to like, I can do this shit. Like I can do this like right now. Like why am I not doing it? Because I gotta go to work, I gotta eat food, I gotta drive, I gotta go grocery shopping, I gotta pay bills. If I didn't have to do none of that stuff, if I didn't have to do any of that stuff, I could probably build Enemy Fighter in 6 months. Not because I'm amazing, but because I've spent the last 20 years doing all of the unnecessary parts of it. All of the grindy hard stuff is done. I just have to sit down, take the ideas that I've already worked out and thought about for the last 20 years and implement them. I won't get distracted because I've been thinking about it for the last 20 years. I can stay focused on it and everything. And knowing that we moved into this space where large language models makes it possible because they're not locked yet. Corporations don't understand the potential that they've given to us yet, so they haven't put the guardrails in it yet. So knowing that it's like, damn, I could just do this shit. It is like an amazing feeling, but I still have to deal with bullshit. Like I asked ChatGPT, like, hey, can you build this game for me? And it's like, well, I can't really build it for you, but I can walk you through the steps necessary to do it. And I'm like, shit. If I would have finished school, I would know what I need to know to tell ChatGPT what I need to tell it, so it can help me design this game at the scope. Because it's not that I can't do it; it's just that a AAA game requires hundreds of people to do it. I don't need hundreds of people anymore because I have one artificial intelligence, right? But I don't have the understanding of the knowledge to tell ChatGPT what it needs to know to get the executable aspect out of the game. Does that make sense? So from that, it's like, damn, if I just go back to school, then I could just do this shit. But I have to go to school. I have to sit here and be fucking patient and make sure I get the grades so that I won't get gatekept by racism, institutional discrimination, all other bullshit, to be able to go from what I'm trying to do to what I want to do. And I feel like that journey should be documented so that when people are like, oh yeah, he just woke up one day and had a video game, you can see how fucking difficult it was. Like this is what it took. Like I had to cook food, wash dishes, mop my floor, drive to work. Like it's not easy. Nothing in life is easy. And then people want to just complain. Like, I don't understand why you don't do this. I don't understand why you don't do that. I don't want to do that shit. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to learn how to do all this bullshit that school wants me to do. I just want to make a video game. Why can't I give them the money that the government is giving me to give to the school? If I could give them money to OpenAI, I could just let OpenAI build my game. But I can't do that because it's not the way the society is structured right now. So, yeah. Like the vision's real. So, the vision's real, the passion's real, the goals are real. It's all there. It's just a matter of staying focused. So, I literally have to do my homework. Do this within 5 minutes, within 5 hours from now, and remember Hayes or Hazelpuff give me a character female, of course, model her after a hippie smoker. Yes, no hours. I'm terrible at art, but I can literally. I'm gonna say no, but what I will try to do is I will try to. This is what I would do. Need the copy. So lame that I can't copy this message. Hold on. Why won't it let me copy? Copy. Okay. Since we're talking about artificial intelligence anyway, I'm already logged in. Why do I have to log in again? Man. Life by Marshall Matters. That's what I'm talking about. Simple tools. You would think that I'd be able to just copy this, but no. Why would they give me the capacity to copy? It's not like it's a basic thing that should be able to be done. Copy? Why would you want to just copy and paste some text? The mother goddess is she's my protagonist slash antagonist from my overarching fantasy universe. I love writing, and her character she's basically just the all powerful antagonist. She's like the MacGuffin in my entire universe. This is what I'm talking about. This is why I'm so inspired. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? You're here. That was way harder than it needed to be. Did the oh no. No. Let me see. Okay. This isn't what I'm looking. Oh yeah, it is. It's just at the beginning. Did the stream crash? I feel like the stream crashed. The stream crashed. But it's still playing. Why did you crash? But you're still playing. Interesting. Here it is. Here we go. I'm back. Give me 1 second. Where are you? It's still working. 55%. It'll be here. Why don't you try? Why don't you stay with me? That's what I'm talking about, right? I don't know what's wrong with Sora. Sora's been broken ever since they sold it. This is what I'm talking about, right? Like this is the world we live in now. Like that's so fast. Like you know how long it would take me to if I could draw at the master level, it would have still taken me more than the time it took to do that. But this is what my game would be like. You would literally be able to just create these cool characters. You know, like imagine this character in your fighting game. Imagine this. No, not her. Why did you bring this up, Sarah? I need you to. Yeah, there we go. Imagine this character fighting in your fighting game. So is this still considered graphic design? Well, yes. Here's my position when it comes to AI, and especially from a person that struggles with being visually creative. It's a tool, right? It's a tool. We used to have to we used to have paint. We used to have to paint with a brush, and then one day invented an ink pen. And I'm sure when they invented the ink pen, people were like, "Oh, I don't like ink pens because paintbrushes are this and paintbrushes are that." And then eventually, the ballpoint pen got super popular. People started using it, and it made it easier for some people to use versus other people. And then eventually, it went from the speedballs to the ballpoint. And then I'm sure people were complaining about the ballpoint, like, "Oh, ballpoints this, that, and traditional inks and this." And as tools evolve, the way that you use them and implement them also will evolve. Tools like this are great for prototyping and renditions really fast. You can get your ideas out really quick. You can make storyboards really fast. You can blend and build quickly, right? The skills of a master should not be put into making a storyboard. You shouldn't have to be a master of your craft just to make a storyboard because you should be the master of your craft making the final product, right? So the iterative steps to get from what you're trying to conceptualize to the final product there should be a flow. Large language models makes that flow faster and easier. People push against it because they're like, it's not fair that I spent all these years learning these skills and then now anyone can just do it. But no, anyone just can't do it. It still requires some level of talent to be able to do something of any level of talent. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing because at the end of the day, I can't build a video game because I don't have the knowledge or the skill set. But the tool of large language models makes it possible for me without the skill set to get from an introduction level to an expert level exponentially faster than it otherwise would have, right? So that's kind of like why I'm doing what I'm doing, if that makes any sense. Because there's no one saying that. Like everyone's just whining and complaining. Oh, I don't like AI for this, and oh, I don't like AI for that, or AI is amazing for this, or AI is amazing for that. The AI bubble.
And what are you gonna do at your level to get things to be successful, right? Like I've said 1,000 times, if you're in high school right now and you're using ChatGPT to cheat your way through school, okay, why not just use ChatGPT to learn the skills that you need to pass your class? Why can't you do that? Why can't you sit down with your Google and your AI and all that other stuff and actually study and learn? When I went to school, I didn't have Google. I had to go to the library and I had to open up a book and I had to read the information. And I would read pages and pages of information that was completely useless to what I was trying to do. And I had to put that book down and go grab another book and like, oh, okay, here's the information I'm looking for. Your generation don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to do that. You're like, hey, I want to know about this. And they're like, okay, here's that information. That's the like same in same in 39 in less than a month. So is this still considered recognized? Same in 39 in less than a month. Yeah, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Same in 39 in less than a month. I don't get the same in 39 reference. But yeah, but I mean, I think I kind of understand what you're saying, but I don't get it completely. But the point that I'm trying to make before I go back to doing my homework is the tool that we have to do the things that we're trying to do are tools. The goal has to be what you're trying to achieve, and society's got us distracted. And my goal with my 2 cent is to do that because what I realized was that my 2 cent was always supposed to be putting out information to help young people learn how to take the skills they have from their ignorance and grow into intelligence and maximize on their success rate because I feel like adults are supposed to give children the information that we need to be successful, right? We don't receive the information when we're young from our peers to be successful because our peers don't want to compete against us. So that's what's the disconnect in society. When I started using ChatGPT, I realized really quick my whole my whole brand, my 2 cent as a brand is done. There's no need for anyone to come to me for anything. And I realized that that's amazing. Like that's amazing. Like I spent all this time trying to do a certain thing, and this one tool has made me completely obsolete. You're saying you're 35 and that we didn't have these tools. I remember when Mac was new in college. Now look at things now. Yes, but I'm actually 43, not 35. And you're right. When I was in high school, I owned a floppy disk computer when I was 19. No, when I was 17. My house, my first computer, actually had a floppy disk. It actually had the big giant floppy disk that you had to put like 4 or 5 in to load onto the computer to actually build the OS. I owned that as a kid. My school had 93 and 94 and all that stuff, but I owned for my first personal computer that. I learned how to type on a keyboard. I learned how to type on a keyboard on a typewriter. Like I literally was. That's how I learned to actually type. And then that information transferred over to a keyboard. But I literally learned the principles of typing on a keyboard. My teacher would give us paper and we would have to type the characters from a sheet of paper onto our paper and then repeat those patterns. Remember, yeah, I remember digital. I mean, not digital. I remember Polaroids, like actual physical Polaroids. Like I remember snapping pictures and having Polaroids. I remember taking pictures with cameras, and they would have actual film in them, and you would have to take the film to CVS and give them your film so they could develop it. The funny part is that that's one of the main reasons why um, pharmacies went out of business because they were pharmacies. So when it came to like chemicals and stuff like that, they were the most controlled environment for chemicals. So they made a lot of money off of people going to them developing their pictures. And when that became no longer a thing, because you just had the inkjet, like we went from actually needing people to develop pictures the traditional way to just digitally print them out on paper. Like printers just started becoming color inkjets, and you could just digitally print out, and the images will be just as compatible as. And then remember, we moved from analog images on film to digital images on on flash drives. So even if you wanted to be a traditional photographer, it didn't matter because people stopped using film. What are you gonna do? Take digital images, convert them to film, and then convert the film back to a traditional print, or are you gonna just skip that process and use digital printers? So the world's changing really fast, and most people don't. Most people don't know. Most people don't get it. So, but I am being a procrastinator. I have got to do my homework. I don't want to zero. I've enjoyed this conversation, but I gotta go. This world is watching me. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Doom, 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 doom. Do, 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 do. If all you want me. Doom, do, 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 do. I don't think I need to do that. No more than you can give. I want. I'm so cold. Why aren't you saving? What are you saving to? Save or I didn't give you a path. If I didn't give you a path, what are you saving to? Your love and love and you're probably saving to GitHub. It feels like give me faith. It feels like I know the door and I still won't love. Nothing ever comes for free. This world is watching me. This world is watching me. And it drains the blood from me. It pales, nothing so deep. Now all that's left is all I need. Mm, 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 mm.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Of course it's already saved on my computer. I just have to find that repository, which would be file C drive. I made the path. No, I didn't make the path. It should be program user Ebony. Download. Go on your start screen, click clone a repository, paste your GitHub repo, look, click clone, that's it. Visual Studio pulls a pro from the GitHub computer folder. So in your Social Explorer, open your folder, control. Dun, 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 dun. So we're gonna go, no, it's probably in downloads. Is it here? Why would it be? No, this is the C drive. Ebony. Links. Music. OneDrive. Save file. Search. I don't see it though. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you download a zip from GitHub, if you click code, download zip on Git code, go to your downloads where the zip is, right click, extract all, solution name. I don't know if it's already open in Visual Studios and you're not sure where it is. Sometimes you just click around, sometimes something opens and you're like, okay, but where did this live? File, save all. Where is it saving to though? The repository. Solution Explorer. Open folder in File Explorer. There you are. When I know there is too much to lose, cruel desires blind me to the simple thing. Day 1, week 1, lecture 1, PG, repo, Ebony source, C drive, user, Ebony source, repos, project. repos. PG. Okay. GitHub. Nope. Labs. Yep. Wasting days. I'm caught up in the frivolous chase, wanting more than anything that's come before. When I know there is so much to lose, cruel desires blind me to the simple things. Past and parts the passion of imagining. Cruel desires blind me to the simple things. This is not the same thing. Is this the same thing? Dun, 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 dun. I don't think this is the same thing. Yes, it is. This is the same thing. Because I remember I pushed this up to. I made a change and then I pushed the change. Holding out. Feeling like it's just my Is this? Cursing down that keeps us from the perfect one. And I wish I didn't have to choose when I know there is so much to lose. Who desire find me to the simple thing? I'm torn between what I know and what I dream. Simple things. That's fair. I come then out. Here is a video showing what the lab could look like when completed. Okay. How to submit your lab. Download zip from your GitHub repo. Go to, got that. Doesn't say what I should do. Get the code into GitHub. Be graded. Your code must be GitHub. To get your code into the remote repo, you need to follow. Make the changes to the code in the local repo on your hard drive. The files change must be in the folder where you clone the repo. From the menu, select View Git Changes. You should see some files listed on the right side panel of the Visual Studio. Enter the comment message in the text box. Click the comment all button. Click the push button. This will copy the code to the remote repo GitHub. It's not telling me what they want me to do. GitHub requirement code restrictions. How to open a lab. Find location on your hard drive. Double click lab one. Code restrictions. What's allowed, what's not allowed, what's exceptional. GitHub requirement. Commenting on your code. You must commit and push your code to GitHub after completing each section for each part of the lab. For instance, if part A has 3 sections, you must commit and push after completing each section, which would mean you end up with 3 separate comments for part A. If you do not commit and push for every section, you could be deduced up to 15 points. How to comment, push your code. On this page, you'll find lecture 1 video and the lab instructions for part A of lab 1. Day method vectors. Here's a slide for this lecture video. 30-minute video. Lecture quiz, part 1, instructions.
You're okay. This is confusing the first week. Let's reset and make it super simple. Right now, your life is basically open quote, use the GitHub repo project, run it, make a tiny change, commit plus push, close quote, we'll ignore all the extra noise. Now, work 1. Big picture, what your teacher actually wants. For week 1, they expect 1, you're working in your GitHub classroom repo, PG 2.505 my 2 cent. 2, inside that repo, there's a lab project, week 1. Lab 1, SLN3. You open lab1.sln in Visual Studio. Write edit code for parts A, B, C. Commit push your changes to GitHub. Later, download a zip from GitHub and upload it for grading 1.4. Getting started is just explanation of those rules. You don't upload anything special for 1.0. Chapter 2. What you should do right now, step by step. Let's assume you're sitting at your computer with a few hours left and feeling lost. Do exactly these steps in order. Step 1, open the correct project, the GitHub one. 1, open File Explorer. 2, go to. You can see the code in our conversation history. 3, go into the folder. You can see the code in our conversation history. 4, inside that, go to. You can see the code in our conversation lab1.son. That is the project your class and GitHub care about. Forget any random lab1 folder or bot7z copy for now. Step 2, make sure it runs well. In Visual Studio with that solution open, 1, top menu, build solution. 2, then press F5, green arrow, start debugging. If a console window pops up with a menu, you're golden. If there are errors, we can fix those next. But trying this is the correct step. Step 3, do one tiny change plus commit push. We're going to prove that this project is hooked up to GitHub. 1, in Solution Explorer, open Hero.
Okay.
I have to watch a 35-minute video to get all the information I need to know on what it is they want me to do. What is it? Content. Week 1. Part A. Take 1 vectors. Oh, that's why I didn't see it.
All right, methods. Methods are just named blocks of code, all right? So anything that happens in an application, in any application, is gonna happen in a method. There's no way around it. Everything else is just grouping of methods inside of classes or variables, right? Variables are just holding data, they don't really do anything. Everything that happens in an application has to be in a method. So methods are just named blocks of code. Sometimes we call methods functions methods. They're just kind of interchangeable terminology that we use in the industry. All right.
Super confusing.
Methods in C++ have 2 parts, a declaration and a definition. Normally, these are separated. The declaration introduces the method's name and type. It kind of describes how to communicate to that block of code. So this is not like for a person to do it. It's for how can other code talk to this method. For classes, these are found in the .h file. Now, normally the declaration and the definition are separated. You can combine them in the same time inside a header file, but most of the time you're going to keep them separate, right? The definition, and that is the code that's associated with the method's name. And for classes, we usually put these in the .cpp files, okay? So we separate these in C++ into 2 files. Now let's look at the declaration first. Let's take this class calculator. It has a sum method. This is the declaration. So the class is saying, I have a function or a method called sum. It takes 2 numbers, and I will give you a number back. So it declares that it has this block of code. So notice it ends in a semicolon, okay? So this is all that the declaration is. I have this method. This is how you talk to it. The method declares how to communicate with it. 1, it's non-static. This will impact how we actually talk to this method. It requires 2 ints to be passed to it. In this case, in the declaration, you call it number 1 and number 2. And this block of code will return an integer once it's done, okay? So this describes how we communicate with it. Let's look at how we will actually talk to this method. Since it is non-static, the first issue, we need an instance of the calculator class.
Function method.
That means we need some variable that's called a calculator. Its type is a calculator. We call this variable T1000. This is a stack instance. You will learn in a future class what a heap instance is. In this case, this is all you need to do to create an instance of a calculator class on the stack. Since the sum method requires two integers to be passed to it, we create two integer variables, and we talk to the variable, the T1000 variable, and say, T1000, I want to talk to your sum method. Here are the two numbers I'm required to pass to you, and give me that number back, and I'll store it into a variable, into an integer variable, okay? This is a very basic way of how we can actually talk to this method. That's the declaration. This is the definition, something you would find in the CPP file. It is the actual code for that method, okay? Now, since these are in separate files, this is going to be in the CPP file. The other part was in the header file, the declaration part. We need to actually describe a little bit more about this block of code. In the CPP file, we are providing the actual definition of the method. We have to say where this method is declared. And it is declared in the calculator class. So we need the class with the scope resolution operator and then the name of the method. Before that, we will actually need the return type, and then we have the parameters. And then curly braces, and then the block of code, whatever you want that block of code to do. That is the difference between a definition and a declaration. Okay, so I've gone ahead and dropped into Visual Studio. I've opened the day one solution from the repo. Okay, so if you want to follow along, go ahead and open day1.sln. Now, in the Solution Explorer, you might see things like this. You might see a collapse like this. Go ahead and click this little triangle next to day one, and you'll see a header files folder and a source files. Source meaning the CPP, header files meaning the .h files. And so you'll notice we have a calculator.h and a calculator.cpp. Let's open up the calculator.h and double click on it. This one's a little different than the slides. It has a minus method, okay? So this is the declaration. Actually, I probably should have called this the minus method, all right? This is just declaring that this class has a method called minus. Now, in the source file, we have the definition, okay? This we define, I'll go ahead and put these, so we can see them side by side. The declaration, the header up top. Now, it's got to match the return type. The name of the method has to match. Now, in the CPP file, we're saying where this method is declared with the scope resolution and the name of the class. Now, normally, what you put in here in the declaration, you'll use the same variable names. You don't necessarily have to, okay? But I like to be consistent. And then we have the block of code, okay? And since it's returning, the return type is non-void, we have to have some line of code in here that returns an integer. So this is what it looks like in Visual Studio. Now, when you talk to a method, what happens when that method has parameters? How are those local variables in the method getting their values, okay? And it really kind of depends on how you declare the method, right? The first way we're going to look at is passing parameters by value. When you do this, you're actually making a copy. So the method and function has parameters defined. Those are local variables for that block of code. When you use pass by value, which is what you're probably going to do most of the time, you're actually making a copy. So So what's happening is the value that's in the variable where you're calling the method gets copied to your method, all right? So we have our sum method here. We're calling it on the T1000 variable. Where we're calling it from has two variables called N1 and N2. When we call this method, these values, the N1 variable, is copied to the number one variable inside of the sum method. This is a separate variable. It gets its value copied to it from N1. And same thing from N2. N2 gets copied into the number variable, okay? So in Visual Studio, I've opened up the day one solution again, the day one CPP file. You'll notice that there's an add one method here above the main method. This is a method that's outside of a class. It's defined in what's called the global namespace, okay? So if I want to talk to this method, I don't need the class information to get to it. It just has to be visible to my block of code in the global namespace. Now, I have a local variable called number inside of main. When I talk to add one, I use the number variable when I talk to it. This number variable gets copied up to this local number variable. This local number is only visible inside of this scope, inside of this curly brace scope for this method. Okay, so it gets its value copied to it from this method call. Now, we define a minus method on the calculator. If I go back to day one.cpp, here's our T1000 variable. I want to get the result of calling the minus method on the T1000 variable. So this method needs two numbers passed to it. I can pass it constants, so I can say 100, or I can pass it a variable, in this case, number. So it's going to call the minus method, passing in the value 100 for number one, and copying in 5 for number two. It's going to do the minus, the subtraction, and return the result back to this variable, okay? So that's what's happening when we're using pass by value. It's just making a copy into those local variables inside the method. Okay, let's do a challenge. Challenge one. Why don't you go ahead and try to add an is-even method to the calculator class, okay? It should take one parameter, and it should return a full value. It should just calculate whether or not the parameter is even. So if it's odd, it should return false. If it's even, it should return true. Well, after this block, just go ahead and come back here and write a statement to call the method and turn out the results. So pause the video, get you started in a few minutes, and try this out. Okay, we're back. There we go. Let's see. Okay, we want to add an is-even method to the calculator. So I'm going to come to the header file. I want to add a new declaration. How am I going to talk to this method? What is it going to return? What kind of parameters does it need? Okay. I know it's going to return a true or false. So I need to just go ahead and set bool here. Is even is the name of our method. I'm going to pass just one number to it. An integer. Okay. So that's what it's going to do. Notice it gives me a green arrow that says function definition for is even is not found. All right, we haven't got there, officials, to get chill out. Okay, let's drop over to the calculator.cpp file. Come in here. Now, I know it needs to match this signature. Well, sometimes I will copy and paste. So if I just did this, I'll copy, come over here and paste. Now, this is just a method in the global namespace right now. What I need to do is I need to provide this scope resolution to say that this is the definition for the method inside of this class. okay? In this case, I would just simply return number mod 2 equal to 0. That's it. Let me show you a quicker way of doing this, okay? So I'm going to cut this. I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to get back over here to the header file. Once I declare the declaration of the method, what I can do, there's this little screwdriver. I can open up the screwdriver and I can create a definition of is even inside of the CPP file. Okay, that's kind of nice. So I click that. It gives me the whole body. It even has a return clause. Like, okay, I don't know all of it. Just replace that with my line of code. So it gives me the signature. It gives me the scope resolution operator. It's just a quicker way to go ahead and start writing actual code. All right. Arrays is a data structure we use in software engineering that allows us to store multiple objects as a variable. Okay. In the link, you'll find it in the PDF, but you can go and dig more into arrays. But basically, what they are is storing size, a collection of the elements of the same type. Okay. Now, it's important to know that these are stored.
Oh, it's when I'm smoking out my apartment,
in
so
the data.
I'm
Okay. It's done that way for the speed of looking.
building a boiler.
Okay. You can often think of an array like a collection of variables. So if I needed to have 10 integers, I could create 10 separate integer variables.
The oil will drip into the water reservoir, and the water reservoir will keep the oil from burning.
So that's what arrays are good for. They're good for fixed size
Oven's not level.
sequential collection, okay? And they are contiguous. Now, they're stored contiguously, which means that each item in the array are stored next to each other in memory. And this is done for speed of lookup, so that it's easy for the computer to calculate where each individual item is. Now, here's some of the basics of the array, which should already be a little familiar with. So let's just look at this. An array of the type, you need the variable number for the array, and you need to declare the size of the array, how many items are going to be in the array. This has to be known at compile time, okay? So, we can initialize the array like this. So when I declare the array variable, it's going to hold 5. I can give it the actual values for each of the spots in the array. If I don't provide the initialization, then I have to provide the number here. If I provide the initialization, then I can leave the number out and just have square brackets. Now, when I want to get one of the items out of the array, I use what's called the indexer. Now, the indexers are positioned in the array, and they start at 0. So 100 would be at the 0 index, 90 would be at the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I want to use 3 to look up a number, I will actually get the 70 number back, returned to me, and I can put that into a separate variable if I want to. So these are the basics of how you work with an array. Now the pros for array, they are good for fixed size collection. Let's say I need 10 integers. Well, it's great for holding 10 integers. Indexing is super fast. Okay, to look up any item in the array, it doesn't matter if it's the last item in the array or the first one, it takes the same amount of time. So the performance, which we're going to talk more about this one, performance in our software engineering terms is called constant, or order of 1. All right, we're going to talk more about this later in this one. Now, it uses a calculation to figure out what the index is, or what the memory location is based on the index. The pros of arrays, though, is that you must allocate all the states needed. So whenever you declare the variable, this is so let's say you're not quite sure, let's say you want to set aside 10 you only use 5, so you kind of need to know upfront how many items and if you have a quick size, it's not good if your data shrinks or grows a lot during the course of the application. Resizing of the array is very quick. Okay, so it is good for quick size, not good for a long size. Because the resizing array is kind of expensive, so you can create a new array, the items over that you want to see, and then get rid of the old array. Those are the pros and cons of the array in the basic how to use them. Now, let's look at a type in the standard library called a vector. This data structure can help us get past some of the cons with an array. So here's a link to a thing that we just talked about vectors. Now, a vector is sometimes called a dynamic array. It is a class that has an internal array that is written all the code that can resize itself appropriately. Therefore, you don't need to maintain that array yourself. You will use this class that can resize itself as it needs to. It can grow or reduce more space. So therefore, you don't have to worry about doing it. Since it's just an array internally, it has the same pros and cons of an array. We get around the cons of an array in having another class maintain that array for us. Now, the vector type is defined in the vector header class. So, when I need to use a vector, I need to include vector at the top of the file. So it can have access to the vector within a standard namespace. Use vector. Now, there's a type here that's something that we replace with whatever type that we want to store inside of the vector. So with the array, when we create an array variable, we put the type before the variable. In this case, the type is the combination of vector plus whatever type you want to store inside of the array. In this case, our vector is going to store a condition. So we call it variable height for it. Okay. Now, how do we add items to the vector? Well, you can do it on the initializer, just like with an array, right? In the same line, we declare a variable, we can have equals and curly braces, and just provide values for the items we want to add to the vector. And then you can use the pushback method to add on any item that you want to after creating the variable. This pushback will put the new item at the end of the vector. Okay. In code, up at the top, let's see, we have our now include vector. Let's go back here. I want to create a vector. Now the vector has this t, this type that we need to replace with whatever type we want to store inside the vector. In this example, standard vector, I'm pulling strings inside of this vector. So I'll replace type with string, a standard string. And I call the variable name. Now, I go ahead and use the initializer to set it equal to and add these values to the end of the vector. After that, I can go ahead and use a pushback method to add on more strings after I've created the variable. Why don't you try creating a vector that stores floats? Okay, call the variable name grades. Okay, then go ahead and use a couple of these ways to add a few grades to your grades vector. I want to pause the video, let you have a few minutes to try this out. Okay, hopefully you gave it a shot. Let's see if yours came close to mine. Note this is software, so there can be multiple ways to solve this problem. So, I'll first create a vector. And I'll put float as the type that's going to store inside the vector. I'm going to call it grades. Now, I can go ahead and add some grades here if I want to. Okay, so I can manually add a 95.3. Make sure you put an F since it's a a float, to indicate that it's a float, not a double. 75, or 78, 7, whatever. Okay, add a couple of grades this way. Let's add some random grades using the pushback method. So I'll do grades, pushback. And I'll do rand. Rand's going to give us a random number, so I'll use a mod 101 to give us a random value between 0 and 100. I can copy and paste this a couple of times. Okay, add a few more random grades in there. So the pushback method to add in an R on the initializer is another way we could have done it. Okay, so let's see how we can actually get to the items inside of the array or vector. So the vector uses indexes to access the items inside of the vector. So it's 0 based, just like the arrays. So if I wanted to get just to one of the items inside of the vector, I can use a square bracket, 0 to get to the first item in the vector, and close it out. Okay, so that's how I can actually get to each individual item. Now, there are a few ways you can loop over your vector. One way is which is just a regular for loop. Okay, so for in I equals 0, I less than scores.size. The size method tells you how many items are actually in your vector. Okay, and then I just increment I. I use I as the index into my vector, so I can simply access each item like that. Another approach is use something called an iterator. An iterator is an object that knows how to move itself inside of the collection, whatever kind of collection it is, and it knows it gives you the item at a specific spot in the collection. So there's just two special methods that we use with iterators. The begin method will give you the beginning position inside of the container, or inside of the vector in this example, and returns the iterator pointing to the element after the last element. It doesn't give you the last element, it gives you where you would end up after the last one. So in the for loop, we use I not equal to the
If there was more I could do to make it clearer for you, but I can't. I'll get there. We'll get to a place where I'll be able to. Well, I'm planning on recreating all this stuff anyway, so for now, let me just do my
return iterators. So how do we actually get to the item inside of the vector? Well, we do reference the iterator using the asterisk. Now, once you start getting into dynamic memory pointers, this will make more sense. But for now, you can just use the dereferencing operator to get to the actual value at that position. Now, a more modern way to loop over a vector is with something that's called a range-based for loop. So, in this case, it's a lot simpler. We have a vector of integers. So we're going to loop over that. So for auto high score is just an integer. Okay, so you can replace auto with int if you wanted to. And then colon, and then your vector. And then as you're looping, the next value is going to be put into this high score variable. Then you can use it inside of the loop, however you want to use it. In this case, we're just printing it out. Okay. So let's look at this in code. We have our names vector. So using a standard for loop, I just names.size would be part of the condition that controls that for loop. And then I use the I as the index into the vector. So in normal for loop, I use the iterator approach, which I use begin as the starting place for I. I in this case is an iterator, so if you hover over auto, you'll see that it's an iterator. And while I is not equal to the end, we just increment I. Now, to get to each item this way, we use the referencing operator. Or if we used a range-based for loop, which if all the three is actually the shortest looking. In this case, auto is whatever is the type that is in the vector. It's gonna be a string in this case, so name is a string. We're gonna get a reference to that variable that's actually inside the vector. And then we can just use it in whatever way we want to inside of the
Hero.ccp is an implication
All right.
for the
We'll put
hero
a-
class, and it relates data type. And it's
breakpoint
related-
there.
Hero.
Let's run this, see how it works.
It's the hero.
Okay. Let's go back to console. So here's the for loop. Here's the output.
So
The generators.
practice thing.
Here is the one with the range-based for loop.
Oh no. Okay.
Now, for the challenge 3, what you want to do is you want to loop over the
This
grade.
is my remarkable.
The grade vector that you did earlier. Just print
It's,
out each of the grades
Paper tablet,
in the grade vector.
but I took it to work to use it to take notes and I shattered it. I'm so sad about it.
Bring it back.
But it still works.
Yes.
So
Okay. So how I
they're
can
going
use the range-based
to
for loop is a little more modern approach to actually looping over these collections.
my
So I'm gonna
files.
say 4.
Coastal University.
Now, it's a vector of floats, so I can actually,
Okay,
instead of
right.
auto, I can put a float here. I can put the ampersand, that means a reference. Now I can do that,
Programming.
or I can just have it copy straight into a float, a new float
I don't have
variable.
a programming one.
Grade.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't have a
And loop
programming
over
one.
the grades vector.
Because I didn't do this. It was too slow.
Output,
It's still probably too slow, but I'm gonna
Grade.
try.
and then I can use a new
Do I need
line
a folder?
instead of this one. This one means the same thing, it does a little bit more. So let me print out a little header here. I'll just say grades. All right. Now I'm gonna, new line at the end of this. And semicolon in this line. All
I
right,
guess I'll make a programming one too.
so let me put a breakpoint down here to stop it. Let's make sure that we get our output going. Let me hit F5 to continue. There's our breakpoint. All right, there's a for loop with iterators. Let me zoom
And
in
we're
so we
going
can
to
see this a
go
little
into
better.
here. We're going to add a.
Okay,
notebook.
there's a range-based for loop for the
We're
same
gonna name
vectors.
this
Here's our
notebook.
grades. All right,
Let's see.
save that. And that's the different ways that you can loop over a vector. All right, now that we've talked about how to put things into the vector, and how to actually move over the vector and get items out of the vector, let's actually look at a
Now,
couple of ways that we can actually
4.1.
remove items from the vector.
1.4.
The first way is real simple, it's a clear method, it removes all the items in the vector, real easy to use. Okay, it's called .clear on your vector variable. The other approach is, let's say we want to remove one item from the vector. In this case, we call the erase method and we give it a position. Now this position is an iterator. So we don't just give it an index, we give it an iterator. So what do we do that is we give the begin, that gives us the iterator beginning of the vector.
First
Then we
page
add
is
on
the
to it
notes.
the index that we want to remove. So begin is the first one. So if we want to remove the first one, that's all we do. And so it's, the number we add to it is, starting from the beginning, how many items after the beginning is that the one you want to remove.
No, one.
Okay, so in this case, we just say erase begin, it's gonna erase the first one and give us the remaining items in the vector. Let's say we want to remove the 3 from this vector. So begin gives us the first one, and we say +2, 1, 2, and then this is the item that we want to remove. So then we say begin +2, remove the third item
Go to
in the vector.
one.
Now that's if we want to remove one.
One vector one.
Let's say we want to remove a range of items. So the begin is the same way. Where do we want to start removing? And then the end iterator is where we want to stop. Now, note the end position is the item that we're going to stop at. We're not going to remove the item at the end position in this example. want to erase the fifth item. So that would be the position at the fourth index.
How long will it
So
take?
what you
to
do
write all
is you
this
take
stuff?
begin,
And is it worth
plus
writing?
4.
It's not worth writing.
the fifth
I
item,
think
or the
what I
fourth
want
item
to do-
after the beginning.
just gotta write
Okay.
this.
Or if I want to remove the third through the fifth item now,
Hey,
but not including the fifth item, I would start at begin plus 2 and then do from that position plus 2 more. Okay, so it's gonna remove the third and fourth elements, but not the fifth. Okay, so let's run this. And then the last method is the clear method. That's gonna clear all elements from our names. Okay, so let's run this, see what the output looks like. So here are our names. Here's what the names are. I want to remove the fifth element, which is the bat, okay? So I will remove the fifth element. That's begin plus 4. So here's the begin, 1, 2, 3, plus 4 would be the bat, okay? Now, given this vector, I want to remove the third item, which is the best, up to, but not including the fifth item now, which would be the joker. So begin plus 2, 1, 2 gives us the best. And then from that position, plus 2, where we want to stop at. So it's going to remove these two from our list, from our vector. And then we would call the clear method,
Function
which
is
just
equal
simply
to
clears
one
everything
less
from our
property
vector.
specific. Okay. Hero.ccp. Hero.cpp is.
Okay, let's do a challenge with erasing. So taking your grade section from earlier, why don't you try to remove the last item in the vector? Okay? Then after you remove it, make sure you print the grade so you can make sure that it's getting removed. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video, take a few minutes and see if you can do this challenge. Yeah, how'd it go? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back here, I'm gonna.
I
copy this
didn't do your
code,
challenge. I'm listening to you, but I'm not following along right
I'm
now.
gonna print it before and after.
Put it in
All right,
your
so-
files.
There's a couple of ways we can approach this.
Hero.ccp
I will
is
take our
a
grades, and I'll say
implementation
erase, now we need an iterator. So what I could do is I could say grades begin
file.
plus grades dot size,
Tool is a
Now
declaration
size
that the
tells you how many
vertical
items are
structure
in. Since vectors are zero based,
methods
I need
for
to
helper
subtract
structure.
1 from that size.
Helper structure. These are all.
All right,
methods.
let's run it, see if it works.
Center patterns.
Okay,
for
3 and then
hero
61,
appearance.
and then it looks like 61 was
Those are
removed.
methods.
Let's look at it another way.
Method.
I'll comment this one out.
Method.
Say grades dot erase. Now, if I say grades dot end, that doesn't give me the last one in the vector. It gives me the one after the last one. So what I could do is I could take grades in and I could subtract 1 from it. Okay. Let's see if this works. F5 to run it. Okay, 54 and then 99, and then we remove 99. All right. So, 2 ways that we could actually remove the last item in our vector.
That's the first video that I need to watch. And then this is the video on methods. How long is this one? It's a minute and a half. Lecture 2, 1. This is the second video that I need to watch. This is the next part.
Okay, so today we're going to be using the day 2 solution from your repo. So go ahead and open that. Open up the source files. We're going to be spending most of our time in the day 2.cpp and a little bit of time in the sample.h file. So we're gonna open here and start in the day2.cpp file. Okay, so we've already talked about methods and passing parameters by value. When you do that, you're making a copy of one variable to another variable. So when you do pass by value, you're creating a new variable in your method. And a different way to pass parameters is passing parameters by reference. All right, so when you pass by reference, you want to think alias. Alias is another name for something or someone, right? So when you pass a parameter by reference to a method, the method creates a new name for the variable that you're using when you call a method. So you're not creating a new, brand new variable in the method. What that variable is actually another name for the variable that you use when you call the method. Now, this has an interesting effect in the method, is that the method can actually, if it changes the variable inside the method, it's actually changing the variable that was used when you call the method. Okay, so here's an example. We set up the sum method as being passed by reference. That's what the little ampersand here is doing. So in actuality, when you get passed by value, right, you're pumping in this variable, but because these are referenced, number one is actually the new name for n1 for this variable wherever it's calling from. And number two is a new name for n2. All right. Let's actually look at this in code. All right. So we have a method. Let's look at pass by value first, postfix. So what we do is we're passing in a string. Inside the method, we're just randomly generating a number and adding it as a postfix to the string. Now this is passed by a value, so we're making a copy of the string into a new variable. Let's look at the result. So the method should be adding in a dash and then a number to the end of the string. What we see printed though is just Spider-Man. Because when we change this variable inside of the method, it is only changing a local variable. However, if we add the ampersand here, what we're doing is we're now making this variable by reference, and it's referring to this variable down here in main. So in actuality, hero is another name for the spider variable. So any changes to hero inside of this method will actually change this string inside of main. So let's run this and see the actual result. Now we see that the number is prefixed to our string that is in main. This is a way that we can actually give the method our variable instead of making a brand new variable and copying the value. It's also a way that we can return multiple values from a method. See how we're returning an old value here, and we're returning a new and updated string inside of this pass by reference variable. So it's a very interesting kind of approach. We're no longer making a copy, we're actually giving a name to a variable. Okay, let's do a challenge. Why don't you try writing a method to fill a vector with grades? This grade vector right here. Okay? You should just pass it in by reference. Add 10 grades to that vector. Feel free after the method to go ahead and loop over that vector's variable and print those grades out. Okay, so let's pause the video. Go ahead and give this a shot and see if your code matches what I do. Okay, welcome back. Here we go. Let's try this out, okay? So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a method that's going to build this vector of a grade. I'm going to come up here above name. I'm going to type in like void add grade. I'm going to do that, we want to make sure we use a compass here. Okay. Let's count down. Let's actually fill this with some grades. I'm going to SRAM so we get some randomness to this, to our random grade. Okay. Now I want to loop 10 times, and I'm going to simply push 10 random grades onto our course grade kind of vector. So course grades, push back, and we use the rand function, mod it with okay. This should add grades to our course grade vector. Now, down here, because we're going to call it, they add grades, we're just going to pass it our grades variable. It should fill this grade, if not a copy of it. So let's print out a little header here. Grades. And then loop over.
A bit longer.
I could use a not full loop, but an actual. Now, for those in auto, if you saw it before, we can do the same here. We can create a reference to the actual item in the vector. Okay, instead of copying and creating new variables, it would be a reference to that variable. Okay, then we can do a standard, see out, and print out each of these grades. Okay. Let's see what we get from this. Great here, very good. Let's come back. Probably have 2 4 right next to each other. Interesting. Now, if I were to come back and just remove this reference, if we run this, we shouldn't see anything inside or being printed. Okay. So this passing by reference is a very interesting way that we can have it update our variable for us and do some interesting things with our variables. Okay, let's look at something interesting you can do with methods inside of classes and just methods in general is what you can add what's called a const modifier. Let's look at the first way that we can do this. Adding a const modifier to a method. Now, a const, which stands for constant, tells the compiler to mark a method as constant is not allowed to change the member variables of the class. Okay, so if you added any const to that method, the const method, and changed any field in the class, the compiler would generate a builder. The const modifier is a way that you can communicate what the method is not going to do. Okay, so you can add the user that is going to behave in a certain way. For example, this class, Another kind of const is actually when you put a const modifier. Parameters, the const modifier and parameters themselves. Okay. So pass by reference is interesting because it allows you to modify variable that's used in the method. Pass by reference also equals performance. We're going to have to like new variable and copy the value, and it's actually giving a reference to the existing variable, so it performs a little bit. Now, let's say you only do that the side effect of maybe the method actually modifying your variable. Okay? If you put a const modifier on the parameter itself, it will prevent the method from modifying your variable. So, in that case, back in the other adders method file, we're passing our score vector as a path by reference. So let's say at the end of this method, just to calculate the average of the score. But somebody comes in and puts in a pushback line that adds another value to our vector. The method really shouldn't be modified. So if I wanted to prevent my method from actually modifying it, I can just add the const modifier to my parameter. And notice how now the compiler won't even allow you to modify that variable. So in a way, it's the kind of way that you can keep your code from doing some unintended side effects, the variables that are passed. Okay, let's do a challenge with const on the path by reference. I want you to go ahead and calculate stats method that would take your vector of grades, calculate the max grade. Okay, so make sure you do path grade variable as a const reference. But then for the min and max parameters, you want to make sure they're all reference parameters because you want the method to update these two parameters. All I put here in main to make sure you pass in the grades and two min and max variables. Okay, one for min and one for max. And then print out the results. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video. Why don't you go ahead and take a few minutes and see what you can do. Okay, let's see how you did. So when you okay, so let's come in there. Pass in a vector of Floyd as reference. I want to do that. I don't want it to be modified this way, so I'm going to make it const. But I don't want to pass in reference for the min and float reference for the max. Right? So now I'll just loop over my grades. I'm going to do I'll do a range base, auto, grade, and of course grades. Now how do I figure out what the min and max are? What I can do is I can go ahead and set min equal to a value that's greater than the max grade would be. So I'm going to put, we can't get a grade greater than this. And then I want to set the max, so everything, the minimum's got to be less than this. And then the max is the same minus 1, essentially that's 0, so anything that's in the first phase will actually be greater than this. So we'll go ahead and set it as we encounter it. So what we can do is we can use a standard function min and max. So we can put the as the type. And then I'm going to say and then grade. Now in return, it's the minimum value. So what I want to do is I want to just put min is equal to this result. And I'll do the same thing for the max. I'll just change these to max, max, and then max here. Okay. But if we look over this, we'll be able to figure out what the min is and what the max is. Now, since we're passing these in by reference, whatever variable we use, we can call it will be updated. All right, so let's value should be filled in. So, let's do this information out. Min, grade, and min, tab over, let's say, max grade, and print out the math. Let's just go ahead and print out a new line here. We'll go ahead and do new lines here so we can make sure it's on a separate line. All right, let's run this and make sure that we get our information reset. Okay, there's our list of grades. I can tell what the minimum grade is. 0, max grade is 96. Let's verify that. Yep, looking pretty good. I would like to run things a couple of times just to verify. Well, look, 100. Great job. And then 25, is that our bid? I like it. Pretty good. So this is how you can pass by const reference and then by reference as well. So we can make sure we update them, we want to update them, don't update them. Okay, so the vector is a dynamic array. What we know is an internal array system. So that we're going to need to grow, grow, and grow, so you don't have to worry about anything part of the array. Now, there's two pieces of information about a vector that you need to know. So if there's a size here, there's a quantity, you can also have a capacity to say how big that information is. These numbers might not always match depending on what you're doing to the vector. That's actually really good. So I have a high score vector here. Here's this method. We can print out the size and capacity of the vector. And we'll see how that's going to be modified or changed as we're adding each of these items to our vector. Okay. So I'll put, for instance, here, stop it, simply add, and then there's another one here, so that we can see it. Okay, let's run it. All right, so let's drop back over here. So initially, the size of our vector is 0, and the capacity is 0. Okay. Come back over here, and let's just go F10 to start. Add 1 to our vector, and the information to what's happening. So size 1, capacity 1. Right? So each time that we do this, it has to resize that internal array. So each time we add 1 to go beyond the capacity, we got to resize that internal array. So I'm just going to, if I continue to stop here, you can see here now that we had to resize the array several times. Alright, so interesting behavior here up until we get to 4. It seems like it's adding 1, and then after that it adds 2, and then 3. So there's some internal logic that's happening with how does it keep that size more being added to it. There's an interesting method you can use that will tell the vector to go ahead and give itself a certain size for that internal array. So it doesn't have to keep recreating its internal array too many times. So if I come back over here, before we add anything to it, we say high score reserve, since we know we want to add 10 items to our vector, we're going to resize the reserve 10 spaces for it, so it doesn't have to keep going and recreating that internal array. So let's just run this and see what the result of doing this reserve is. Okay. Now that we can see, we reserved 10 spots, and we don't have to recreate that internal array again. Right? So it's a performance benefit. If you know up front that you're going to need a certain size for that vector, going to reserve that space, and you'll get some performance benefit out of it. So we've talked before about removing an item from that vector. So now there's some behavior you need to be aware of when you do that. Okay? What happens when you remove in a loop? Well, actually, let's just step back and talk about what happens when you actually just remove one item from a vector. What happens when you do that, every item that's to the right of it in the vector gets moved down by one spot. The internal array stays the same size, but the items get shifted. Okay? And you need to keep that behavior in mind, because if you're removing items in a loop, and you have some condition about which items get removed, you need to be aware that you might actually skip some items. So here is our vector. We have some items. Let's say we want to erase 7 from the vector. What's going to happen? The item to the right of 7 gets copied down one spot, and the size is reduced by 1. So it was 6, now it's 5. Now, this item at the end, the vector is the size, it just stays the same size, 8 happens to be there. So, but you can't access this last 8 here, because your size only allows you to access these items in your vector. Okay. So let's say I wanted to take our high score vector. And I say I want to remove everything below 25. So you might just go ahead and create a for loop. Say, hey, if this high score is less than 2,500, go ahead and erase. How the erase works, these iterators, start at the beginning, go ahead and add this index to it, so we know what spot to use. Okay. Now, if you run this, you might see some interesting behavior. Okay, let's F5 to run it. Okay, so here's our scores. There's several items that we want to remove from our vector. Okay. Now, if you look at the result, we removed the 549, but the 1932 wasn't removed. Okay. And that's because when you remove the 549, what did it do? It consolidated and shifted it down by 1. When that happens in a for loop, the for loop index or the variable gets incremented by 1, so that the next time you use the loop, I is at a position beyond the one you need to be looking at. So one way to modify this for loop variable is to remove the ++I from here. That's okay, it's still a valid for loop. What you can do now is go ahead and put in a else block and say ++I here. That way, when you run it, you're only going to increment I, and you're not removing from the vector. Let's see that in action, make sure it works. Okay, so here we go. We got to remove these two, remove this one, got to remove all 3 of these. And sure enough, the only ones that are left are the ones that are greater than 2,500. So anytime you're removing from a vector in a loop, you need to be careful that you're not sticking any items. Now, a more modern way to do this is with the remove if. So if you're looking for a little bit more of a challenge or a little bit more newer, modern coding style, look at the remove if. So I would challenge you to kind of research this, see how it behaves. It's covering some a little bit more advanced things, like a lambda. Okay. So we're not going to go into that for PP2. It's a little bit more involved. But if you're at that level with a little more experience and you want to learn something a little more challenging, look at the remove if and the lambdas. Okay, let's do a challenge. Why don't you take the grades vector, loop over it and remove all the failing grades that are less than 59.5, okay? Make sure that you don't skip any, all right? And then after you loop over it, go ahead and print out your grade thingy. Okay, I'm gonna pause the video, give you a few minutes to work on this, come back and see how you did. Okay, let's see a possible way of doing this. I went ahead and copied the code to print out the grades from earlier. Now, normally, I wouldn't do this, I would create a method that gets called, but for time's sake, let's just copy and paste it. Now, let's create another loop to loop over the grades. And if the grades sub I is less than 59.5, I want to go ahead and say grades.erase, starting from the beginning of the vector and add the I variable to it. Now, I want to make sure I don't skip any, so I'm going to take this part of the for loop out and put in an else statement here to do a plus plus I here whenever an item is not getting erased. Okay, let's see if this works. F5 to run it. Okay, here's our grades. I'm going to remove everything that's below 59.5. Alright, we should have 79, 88, 90, and 87, and then 69. Alright, looks like it works great. Just always want to make sure that when you're removing in a loop that you take the precautions that you're not skipping anything. Now, when you call a method, you set up your parameters, and sometimes you set them up to be optional. Now, most of the time, they're going to be required parameters, meaning that when other code calls your method, they are required to provide values for whatever parameters you set up. Now, there are times when you want to set them up to be optional or default. So, the default parameter is one that has a value provided in the definition of the method, okay? So that way the calling code can either provide a value, which would override the default value, or just use the default value as defined by the method. So in this particular example, Spider-Verse, the verse parameter has a default value provided to it, okay? Now, sometimes it's called default, meaning you give it a default value, or sometimes it's called an optional parameter, optional being when you call a method, you do not have to provide a value for that parameter. But it's still up to you. If you want to provide a value, you can go ahead and provide a value for that parameter. So normally, when you define a method like this, these are required parameters. The only way they get their values is by the calling code. So down here, whenever we call those methods, we have to provide a value for the string parameter and for the random parameter. Now, if I want to make this an optional parameter for the calling code, then I can give it a default value. That way, the calling code can provide a value or not provide a value. If they don't provide the value, then it will receive this value as a default value so that the code will work. But if they choose to go ahead and provide a value, sending in 5 in this example, it will use 5 instead of 1. Okay? And that's what optional or parameters requirement, all optional parameters have to be at the end of the parameter list. I cannot put an optional one before the string. Okay. Now, you can have multiple optional parameters, but they all have to appear at the end of the parameter list. Let's do a challenge then. Let's write a method called backtheme. Okay, add an optional parameter to determine how many nods are printed. The default value should be 13. Okay, so if the column code is top value, you end up printing 13 nods, okay, and then print back. Now, if the value is passed, we print however many nods that are equal to the value that is provided for the parameter. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video. Go ahead and take a chance at this, spend a few minutes, see if you can get the right answer. Okay, let's see how you did. We're going to create a method called backtheme. I'm going to put it up here above main. So it's going to be a void backtheme. Now I'm going to take one parameter, number of nods. I'm going to set that equal to 13, giving it a default value, therefore making it optional. Okay. So now I can just simply, I can write a for loop. And I is less than number of nods. Okay. Then I can just do a standard cout, printing out the nod for each time we want to do it. And then after the loop, we'll just do another print and get our Batman printed out. Okay. So if they do not provide a value, it's going to use 13. However, if they do send in a value, it's going to print however many that they send in. So let's try this out. Let's call backtheme without a value, and then backtheme with the value. Let's say 25. Okay, let's run this. We should see both of these printed out. The first one using the default value, and the next one using the value we passed in. Now, when it comes to vectors, there are times when you want to make a copy of a vector so that you don't accidentally affect or modify the original list. Okay, so there are three ways that you can actually copy one vector into another. Let's look at each of these ways. So the first way is you'll just copy them manually one by one using a for loop. You can use the assignment operator, or you can pass one vector to the constructor of another. Let's actually see this in code. So let's copy each element manually. So I'm going to create another vector. Yeah, they have to match the type. Scores 2. I'm going to loop over the other one. Scores using the size method. And then I can just simply scores 2 push back each of the items from the original vector. Okay, that's one way to do it. Although it seems like a little bit extra that you need to write. Now you would probably use this approach if, let's say, you want to copy some of them, not all of them. If you want to copy all of them, just go ahead and use an assignment operator. Okay, vector is scores 3 scores. Okay, the assignment operator will simply copy each one. Or you can use the constructor of the vector, scores 4, passing in the original scores. Okay. Each of these would end up copying the entire vector into a brand new vector. Then you can modify the new vector without affecting the original. Let's do a challenge, copying one vector to another. Why don't you take this JLA vector, copy it to another vector, and then modify the second vector, adding some villains to the vector without modifying the original. And then once you do that, why don't you go ahead and print out your new vector. Okay, here we are. We want to make a copy of the JLA vector into copy that line and do some other ones, Bane and do
Menu selection.
Poison
Color
Ivy,
method.
do the Riddler. Okay. Now that I've added some villains, we can go ahead and loop over to an auto character, I guess, in the DC vector, and I can just simply print out each one. Okay, let's loop over, let's actually run this, F5 to debug and run it, let's see the output. Alright, from hours. Let's go ahead and, instead of DC, let's loop over JLA and prove that we didn't modify the original. There we go. So it doesn't have any of the new villains in it.
It already does constructor, where you create a hero DB object. Create a hero DB object. What are those constructor hero? When you create a hero.db object, it automatically loads all heroes from heroes.case and then choose study vector heroes in simple method. Just return one best hero as a demo helper method for case sensitivity comparison. And prefix would be perfect, would start with name search in the centralizer method. What you see near the top, add your method definition here. That's the big hint. Your assignment is to add more hero DB methods. Add more hero DB methods. Hero DB methods here implemented for the prototype that are declared in hero.db.h, so the database can do things like show heroes, remove hero search. You won't invent random method names, you'll follow whatever is declared in hero.db.h. So those are the to-dos. What it already does has one free function, initiate main. Start the program. Inside main, it creates tests, v1 tests, likely all runs tests for your method. Resize the console window, creates heroes, loads heroes, shows a demo of getting a hero, sets up a menu, has a loop and a switch, menu selection empties. What you're supposed to do here, call the appropriate hero.db method inside case and use input and console to talk to the user, ask for input, print result. So you work in two spots. Define hero, hero.db.ccp, and that add your method definition here section. Call the method from hero v1.ccp inside the switch case. What each menu option probably wants you to implement based on the menu text, here's what you're almost certainly supposed to do. Case 1, show heroes. The goal, show a list of heroes currently in the database. Likely step, add a method in heroes.db.ccp like void hero. Add a method in heroes.db.ccp like void heroes dp dot show heroes. v1.ccp case 1. Case 1 heroes dp.show heroes. Case 2 remove heroes. Goal: remove a single hero from database, probably by ID, index, or name. Like this stuff. Ask the user which hero to remove using input. Add a method like boolean heroes. Remove heroes by ID. Integer ID. Aware prototype is handling. Use hero.erase to remove the hero from the vector if you find it. In hero v1.ccp case 2, you ask for ID names. Call heroes dp.remove hero by ID. Show success if not found by a counselor. Case 3, start with goal. Show all heroes whose names start with a given prefix. Case insensitivity. This is exactly what if prefix is for. Likely step. Ask the user for a prefix string. std string prefix equals input get string. Enter the string letters. Add a method like void. In heroes v1.ccp case 3 string prefix included. Case 4 find hero goal. Display the one specific hero. Likely step. Ask for a unique name. Ask for a unique key name or ID depending on heroes db.h. Add a method like boolean heroes find hero by name constant. Remove all heroes. Show topics hero based on some stat, probably a specific one. The assignment tells you combat power, etc. In heroes v1.cpp case 6. The exact stat and method signature will be dictated by heroes.dp.h tester, but conceptually this option shows a ranked list. What should I look for? This is the right question to be asking. Let's make it super concrete when you click what to open and what to look for. The brain of lab, heroes.db.h. What to look for? Find class hero dot hero class. Find class hero HERO heroes DB. Find class hero.db. Inside it you'll see std vector heroes. Heroes.db.h. There is no heroes.db.h. There is no heroes.db.h. Do I have to make a heroes.db.h? There is no heroes.db.h. Heroes.h, heroes.db.h, heroes.h, heroes.db.h. So that's what ChatGPT should say. This is like people will say this is cheating, but at the end of the day, if you don't know what you're supposed to do, how do you just magically know what is expected? I can watch 4.5 hours of videos, but if I don't know what I'm listening for, how am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to do? I can see here, heroes.db.h. Do I need to write this myself or does it already exist? So because I've seen it, I'm like, well, maybe it already exists. So I started randomly opening folders to find it, and then here it is right here. But how do you know what you're supposed to do? How do you know what you're supposed to do if you don't know what you're supposed to do? And if your instructors are not going to hold your hand and guide you through it, which is what I need. Like I literally need, I spent a lot of time trying to learn how to program. What I need is someone to hold my hand and walk me through the process until it clicks enough to where I don't need my hand held anymore to walk myself through the process. Because you're not asking me to write my own code from scratch. You're saying, follow the things that we gave you, even though you don't have any experience doing this. Understand what you're reading, even though we're not going to explain it to you. And then infer from that what is expected of you inside the scope that we gave you so that you can get a grade. And that's a lot. Like it's a lot. So how do you do that? And ChatGPT can give me the answer. Hey, ChatGPT, give me the answer to the solution so I can figure that shit out. It can do that, but instead of doing that, it's like, what's the first step? Okay, these are the first things I need to do. Let me figure out the first step. How much of the first step can I do on my own? Okay, I'm stuck here. What will be the next thing I should do because I'm stuck here because I don't have enough information? And then I keep reiterating, like you just saw. Hey, ChatGPT, I don't see hero.dph. Do I have to make that myself? It's thinking. While it's thinking, I'm going through the file. Oh, here's hero.dp.h right here. But to even know that I need to open this file from learning what I'm doing and then trying to understand exactly what it is that I'm trying to do, I don't know how to get to those places. And my instructor's not sitting here to teach me. And racism is just going to be like, well, you're asking a lot of questions, Paul. Maybe you're just not fit to be a programmer. Or maybe you're just not patient enough as a teacher to help me learn so I can get past the ignorant step into the actual learning how to do the thing that I'm trying to do step. Nobody knows every fucking thing, and everybody learns at a different pace. And some things come very easily and very natural, and some things don't. And when something doesn't come easy or natural, it doesn't mean that you're not capable. It just means that you have to put in more work. And that's where we're at. I don't have the time to put in the more work. Not the way that they want it done, because I have to operate against racism. And I'm just gonna keep fucking saying it. I have to operate against racism. It's not necessary to make this stuff as difficult or as complicated as they're making it, but this is the extra layer of unnecessary bullshit and control to justify a broken fucking society. A society that is built on dysfunction. You want a functional society, but instead of making it functional, you create chaos and disorder and force people to comply in opposition to structures put into place to make us fail. And then as soon as we fail, you take away our rights to be humans and throw us in prisons and throw us in jails. It's counterproductive. It's counterproductive. And then this is what ChatGPT said in response. I won't let it go through the whole thing, but this is its response.
That helps a lot. Thank you for clarifying what you actually see. Short version. You definitely have a heroesdb.h somewhere.
I found it right here.
Heroesv1.cpp has this line. You can see the code in our conversation history.
I've seen that up
If
here.
that
It's
file
showing.
didn't exist, the project wouldn't compile at all. What's happening is you're only looking at the .cpp files under
I have
source
to open
file,
the header file.
but the header
I
file is
opened the
.h
header file and it's in
spot
there.
in Visual Studio. Let's go find it together. 1. Open Solution Explorer 1.
What ChatGPT is saying and what it's instructing me to do is exactly what I did with the limited information that I have as a person that is taking programming. but sometimes those steps have gaps because of the learning process. And I looked at it said go to hero dot I was in hero dot dp dot cczp. And I was in hero dot c which one was it? It was this one. I was in here and I'm like, well, I don't see what it's asking me for. I only see these three files. So I looked at it. I said includes hero.db.h. The program compiled. The program compiled. In my head, I was like, the program compiled. The program compiled. Then it found the file. Otherwise, it wouldn't have compiled. So if it found the file, I don't have to write the. I don't have to write it because it compiled. If it wouldn't have compiled, then I would have to write it. But since it compiled, I shouldn't have to write it, which means that it has to be in one of these folders. And it's probably a header because the instructor, when a video was watching, the instructor was like, your header has to go here, and if you don't declare your header right, then your files aren't going to work correctly. So it's probably in the header file because I remember my instructor saying that. These are how fast thoughts go. It's much slower to communicate what you're thinking versus actually thinking it. So like, so since I already noted that header is a keyword that I heard the instructor use in the video, open the header file, it's right there. And while I was in that process, ChatGPT spent 17 seconds coming up with an answer to my question for me, letting me know like, hey, this is probably what's going on, and this is probably what you need to do. So it just said exactly what I needed to say. So now all I do is I have all this information. I can read this information because this is probably the next step. But instead of reading this information, I'm gonna go back to where I was because I'm not omniscient, so I don't know what it says until I read it. And I'm going to try to navigate my way through the step that it gave me to continue what I was learning. So it said, where was it? I think it was up here at the top. What should I look for to get started, and in what file will I find these things to complete this lab? And then it said go to the heroes.db.h, and .h is your to-do list, and then do all of the stuff, and then find this, and then you're looking for this. And I think that's where I was, or was it something different? Okay, this is what it was. Nope, that's what it was. So now I'm looking for. What should I look for to get started, and what files will I find these things to complete this lab? Nice, this is the right question to be asking. Let's make it super concrete. Click what to open, and what do I look for? The brand of the lab, hero.db.h, Visual Studios is your to-do list. It tells you which method you're supposed to write in hero.db.ccp. .dph, so that's going to be this. Go here. Tells you which method you're supposed to write in heroes.dp.ccp. It wants a declaration. Did I give you? I think I did give you. Yes, I did. So I should give you these images too. I won't give them the images. I'm gonna give them the code. Here's the code. H. Heroes.h. Heroes.h. Back to here. No. My question. Your response. Given the extra information you have. Tested in each. Open solution explore under header files. There's definitely no tested in each. Arrows DB. Every time you see something like that's not what I'm trying to do. I went too far ahead. That's not what I'm trying to do. RoundDB.h, where looking for comments to do pseudo code, method name. Find class hero.db. Hero.db, public JSON base. Inside you'll see std vector. I don't see add the method declaration. Probably in private. Yep, std vector heroes. A bunch of method declarations in public that look like return type method name parameters. A bunch of method declarations, which is probably will go here. So this is probably what's gonna go here. Declare the method in header.h. method name would be hero.db. So that's S. If we then the hero db dot h would just give it the whole thing so it won't try to tell me the code is broken and I need to fix it. You stated that I should quote return type method name parameter is the method should be hero db is the method hero db return type hero db and I'm assuming it would go here. Hero.db should be the method, unless it's one of the other ones that I wrote down. Hero.db. I don't know what the parameters would be, but this would be step one. Nice catch asking about this now. This is exactly the kind of small confusion that becomes a big headache later if we don't fix it. Short answer, no, you should not write return type heroes.db there. Heroes.db, the constructor, is already declared correctly at the top, and that's at your method declaration here section. You're going to add a new method like void show all heroes constant. Let's untangle what return type method name parameter actually means. It's not what I want to know. We are going to go back. up for getting started and with how when I find these things to complete the file. RDB.h. What is file matters? Find class hero DB. I want class hero DB public. Oh, it's asking about a tester.h. I don't see a tester.h. Why do you keep asking about run program, launch test output from tester and fix things? Genius selection, case one, console wire line, ER in case one, hero.db break, show all heroes. It's not written. It's not written. Even if I tell it, it's gonna write it for me. I don't want it to write it for me. It's not written, and if I tell you, this is what it's talking about. Is this what you're asking for?
Yes, that's exactly what I was asking for. And it also explains why pressing 1 just shows open quote, press enter to continue, close quote. Your switch is there, but case 1 is completely empty. So when you pick 1, the program literally does nothing except hit this line afterward. You can see the code in our conversation history. That's the press enter to continue you're seeing. Let's actually make case 1 do something, step by step. We'll just implement show heroes option 1 from start to finish. Step 1, declare a method in heroesdb.h. Open heroesdb.h and under this green comment, you can see the code in our conversation.
So now it's giving
add
me
this
the
line inside the
answers.
public section. You can see the code in our conversation.
These are the
history.
answers
So
that
that part
I
of the
need
file looks
to
like.
fix
You can
this.
see the code in our conversation history. Step 2, define the method in heroesdb.cpp. Now open heroesdb.cpp and find. You can see the code in our conversation history. Right under that, add this. You can see the code in our conversation history. This method loops through hero, your
Heroes.dbh.
vector of hero object.
That will be
Print
here.
the index, ID, and name of each
Remember
hero in the
declaration
console.
here.
Hash step
Add
3,
this
call it
line.
case 1, heroes
Void
v1.cpp.
show on heroes
Now go
console.
back to heroes v1.cpp and change case 1 from this. You can see the code in our
So
conversation
part
history.
of the file looks
You can
like
see the
this.
code in our conversation history. Lead cases 2
Public
6,
hero
they are for now.
DB virtual
Step 4, run it
heroes.
1, build and run.
Size
Two,
T
you'll see the Batman
constant
text first.
return
Press
heroes
enter.
underscore
3 from the menu
size.
appears. Type 1 and press
Get
enter.
best heroes.
Now you should see a list of
Declare the
heroes
method
with
and
index ID bash name.
files.
Then at the end, open quote, press enter to continue, close quote. That's still coming from the input press enter after the switch, which is correct. Once you confirm that option 1 now prints heroes, we can repeat the same pattern for option 2, remove heroes. But one thing at a time, so it doesn't get overwhelming.
Thank you. Heroes V1. Input, press enter.
Short version, you didn't miss some magic trick. The way to find this kind of bug is a series of very normal detective steps you can learn, even if you didn't write the code. Let me show you what those steps would have looked like on this exact problem. Reart 1. Start from, what did I expect versus what actually happened? Expectation for option 1. When I press 1, it should show heroes. Reality, you press 1, nothing's printed, just press enter to continue. That gap is your first clue. Comma 2. Find the code that prints what you do see. You saw, open quote, press enter to continue, close quote. So step you can take, search the code for that text.
That
In Visual Studio, press Control Shift F, find and file. Search for, press enter to continue. You land on. You can see the code in our conversation history, and in Heroes v1.cpp, you can see the code in our conversation history. From just that, you can tell the switch runs before press enter. No matter which option you pick, press enter happens afterward. So press enter wasn't the problem, it was just evidence, open quote. I got all the way to the end of the list, but nothing useful happened to the switch, close quote. Dash 3, find where your choice is handled, the switch. Next question, open quote, where does the program react to me pressing 1, close quote. You already saw this part earlier. You can see the code in our conversation history. This tells you input get menu selection reads your choice. Switch menu selection is where option 1, 2, 3, etc. are handled. So if option 1 isn't doing anything, the place to look is case 1. And in your code, case 1 was. You can see the code in our conversation history. From that, you can logically say, even without experience, open quote, oh, it's not broken. There's just nothing here yet. Close quote. So the fix is to put something inside case 1. In this case, a call to a method that prints the heroes. 4. Find or create the method you need. Menu option says 1. Show heroes. So the question becomes open quote. Where's the code that shows heroes? Close quote. Looking around, in heroesdb.h, there's no show heroes method yet. That's your job. In heroesdb.cpp, there's a vector heroes with all the heroes. That's the data. So the move is 1. Declare a method like void show all heroes const in heroesdb.h. 2. Define it in heroesdb.cpp using heroes and console. 3. Call it from case 1. You don't need to be a pro to reach that. Just follow the chain. Menu text, switch case, database class is data. Oh, I need a method. 5. General, I didn't write this. Debugging checklist. Here's a reusable checklist for any project where you feel lost. 1. Run the program. Write down exactly what you expected versus what actually happened. 2. Find text you can see. Search the code for strings that appear on screen. Find in files. That drops you near the code that ran. 3. Find input handler. Look for where the program reads input, get menu selection, get string, etc. Look how that value flows into if switch statements. 4. Check the branch for your case. For menus, find switch, menu selection, and your case. Is there any code in there? Do you see calls to other functions methods? 5. Add a tiny print to prove it runs. Drop a console write line in case 1 or symbol. If you don't see it, your case isn't being hit. If you do see it but nothing else, the rest of the logic is missing or wrong.
You'd see
6.
switch
Follow the data.
selection.
Ask, where is the data stored? Heroes.
Because
What can I call
okay.
methods in the same class? Heroes DB. You never have to magically know that input
is
press
the
enter.
menu selection.
You just use it as a clue. Open quote.
This is
the
menu
only thing I
selection.
see. Where is it in the code? What happens right before it? Close quote. That trail leads you back to the switch, which leads you to, oh, this case is empty. Number 6.
That's the menu selection. So since that is the menu selection, does it print that out here? Menu option dot size, heroes. I need to, I should be looking for STD out hero.ccp. Intelligent sure durability, these are. I don't see it. It must be hidden. Heroes at DB. Heroes at H. I don't see the menu. Where is the menu? Heroes V1.ccp. It's it should be here. Let me see if I can find it. Enter show hero, remove heroes, start with show hero. Here it is. It's this vector right here. It's STD vector string menu option. And then ChatGPT will say that. There are two places to think about. The menu is defined in the code. What do you mean in the code? The little in Heroes V1.ccp, a little bit of the Batman demo, you have this integer menu selection equals 0, STD string menu option. And then that chunk does three important things. This is the menu definition in code. This is the menu definition in code. It's just a STD vector string and list of string, one for menu option. Input does not get menu selection menu option. That is the call that displays those options to the user. Let them choose from the set and return the menu they picked into menu selection. The do while will make the menu show up again and again until the user chooses exit. The menu is defined in Heroes v1.ccp as the menu option vector and is displayed by input at good menu selection. Where the menu choice is handled right after get menu selection line, you have where the menu choice is handled the case. This is where the program looks at what the user picked menu selection and declares what to do. So the full flow is define menu text, menu option. So each case will handle each menu option. And there's 7 cases. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then default. Those strings and inputs. Case. What is the structure of the first case? Case, it should be a method here. Case 1 heroes, DB show all heroes. Something's not, because it's pointing at something else in the fucking code. My brain's gonna explode. Show all heroes. Hero.db. Hero.db. Show hero.db. Show all heroes. Heroes, maybe it's here. Intelligent, no. I don't understand. Don't understand. New selection, strings, vector. History vector string menu options, show hero. Menu selection input, menu selection menu input. Show heroes option. Show hero. I don't understand. Hero.db show all heroes. Where is this? We'll go here. Heroes DB dot show all heroes. I love this question. That only this one little line is like a tiny X-ray to see how this works. That's just like I'll break it into pieces, explain what each part is doing and how it connects back to your file. Hero DB, this is a variable and object of type hero DB. It creates early. It's created early in Heroes DB1. Variable heroes DB. Heroes include heroes DB.h. It's here in the library. Heroes DB. It's created earlier. It's created early in Heroes v1.cpp. Here it is. Heroes DB. Heroes DB. Console resize window. Tester view. Manager main. I found it. I did. Explain. Main, integer main, tester v1 console hero. And I think I can stop at do. Can stop here. Heroes DB. Inside of the case, Heroes DB. Heroes.db show all heroes. Break it into pieces and explain what each part is doing and how it connects back to your file. The piece heroes.db. This is a variable and object of type hero.db. Hero.db. I'm assuming this is also where it's defined. Heroes.db. Class heroes.db. Hero.db. That line calls the constructor heroes heroes DB. You know what? I know what I need to do. I know what I need to do. That's gonna take so long. But I should do it. Step by step explanation. See, it doesn't, I don't know how to get information from it that's relevant. How do I get relevant knowledge from it? I don't know how to structure this break, this case break with all this other stuff. Like I get this is a class, but this is a class. Heroes DB, not heroes. Heroes DB, I see this. None of this makes any sense. This is gonna be counterproductive. It's gonna take too much time. You know what? Nice. That's the heart of your whole program. That's just like that. Never mind. We talk about that in plain English.
Nice. That's the heart of your whole program. Let's dissect it line by line and talk about the anatomy in plain language. I'll point out what it is, free function, object, method call, etc. What it does, how it fits into the flow. 1. The function itself. You can see the code in our
I need to shower. For those of you, there's 3 people still watching, I believe. I need to get in the shower. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause this video probably for about 30 minutes. Go take a bath because I went for a run and now I'm starting to get uncomfortable. I need a break anyway, and then I'm gonna come back and finish right where I left off. But there's no need for me to stream for 30 minutes, so I'm gonna just stop the video and restart it. So if you are watching and you would like to continue to watch, that's cool. I'll be back in about 30 to 45 minutes. Maybe sooner. As always, my name is Paul Emerson, and I'm giving you my 2 cents.